Step one, wake up, brother, gonna rise with the sun. Step two, get some food in you. Step three, you grow hard about what you wanna be. Step four, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Anne, we haven't seen each other for so long. We used to see each other quite a lot. And so this is an opportunity not only for us to have a chat, but also to get to know who Anne McKeown is and what she does and how she empowers women. And we'll get to that as we go along. But welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Tiff. It's so good to see you again as well. And it's actually incredible what an impact the whole COVID thing had with us all being separated and locked down. And it broke routines, because we did have a beautiful routine before, and all of that changed. And it's been wonderful to watch your growth, and I really appreciate being part of your show.
Yeah, thank you. It's really good. Yeah, that's going through a process of evolvement. So I'm really excited about that. And I thought, I've got to have like empowering women, you know, on the podcast program as well. And I was like, oh, Anne, that's what you do. So I was like, yay, I'll get in touch with Anne. So Anne, what I'd like to do so people can get to know you is, obviously you're not an Aussie. You're an adopted Aussie.
Yeah.
So can you just share a bit about your childhood, where you grew up and what your passions were as a kid and all that kind of thing?
Yeah. So I was brought up in Scotland. It's pretty obvious by the accent. It's actually quite funny, because my husband is English and my kids are Aussie, so we don't sound like a family. But I was brought up in inner city Glasgow as the youngest of six. And I remember having been a really kind of happy childhood. When I look back now, I realise that we were actually quite poor. The sort of 8 of us living in a 2-bedroomed tenement building in not a very nice part of Glasgow. But I think what that did was it gave us all a bit of a drive. We never for a moment thought we would inherit anything. So there was none of this sort of inheriting a house or inheriting money or anything. So there was always that thing of, as soon as you left school, you would get out and you would work. And at the time I used to think it was quite harsh, but as time's gone on, I've realised that it's given me a really strong foundation for making my own way in life.
Yeah, okay. So with the family so close knit, you know, like in this 2-bedroom house with lots of kids, I mean, obviously there was a lot of closeness though with the family. Is that right in saying that?
Yeah, there was very, So my sister and I, she's 11 years older than me, and we had 1 bedroom, and the 4 boys had the other bedroom with like 4 bunk beds, and mum and dad would sleep on the couch that folded down into a bed in the middle. But my mum was very loving, caring, giving. And so, yes, there was a lot of warmth, and I was the youngest. And so, yes, I think it's true, the youngest is spoiled. Spoiled with attention more than things. All my things were hand-me-downs, but I definitely felt that sense of security. And my mum actually, she suffered quite a bit of depression, and she was a bit nervous about life. And so she hid behind her kids. But what she would do is, if I went out with her, she would say, you go and pay the bus driver, or go and ask the man for milk from a cup of tea. And so she always pushed me forward to go and ask for things. And at the time it used to annoy me. I thought, why can't she just go and ask for herself? I felt like a wee skivvy. But again, with hindsight, I've realised that she gave me a strength where I actually don't have a fear of kind of asking for things. I've got the mentality of, well, they can only say no, and if they say no, I won't be offended. I'll just accept that they said no.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually good grounding, isn't it? Because sometimes we have those, like you said, like those issues around, like, well, she's an adult, why can't she do it? But she was, little known to you, she was giving you some training Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
which has helped you moving forward in life, hasn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I think really her intention was she didn't want us to be shy or depressed or less capable, or it was her way of, I can't do it, but I'm going to make sure that I'm going to push you forward to be able to do it.
Yeah, and that's quite insightful, isn't it? When your parents,
Mm.
my mother was like that too. Like my mum, um, is quite shy and all of that kind of thing. But she kept pushing us out into doing lots of activities, and you're
Yeah.
going to university no matter what, because I didn't finish school, and all of that kind of
Yes.
stuff. So yeah, so your parents want more for you than what they've created. So obviously that's what your mum was doing for you too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So then you get to a point where you finish school and actually, sorry, I'm going to backtrack just a sec. Did you have a childhood dream of anything? Did you like dream
Actually,
that you
well,
wanted to be something or?
yeah, I thought I wanted to be a nurse, believe it or not. I mean, when I was at school, you were either going to be a nurse or a teacher, or work in an office. I wasn't smart enough or hardworking enough, whatever way you want to look at it, to be a doctor. And the thought of going to uni was not really an option for us, because you had to, if you stayed at home, you had to get out and work and contribute to the family budget. I mean, by the time I was working, everybody else was too, so there was probably less pressure on me. But it was just the very working class mentality. Like, none of us went to uni, and it wasn't really expected. Although what's interesting is we've all done degrees later in life, so that's an interesting thing. But yeah, and I did work placement when I was about 16, and I went and worked in this hospital to do nursing. And this woman said, "Can you help me? Can you help me? My bandages have come loose." And I thought, "Oh, I'll go and see if I can help her, and if not, I'll go and get a nurse." And she just had varicose veins removed, and her legs were all bruised, and I was only young, and I was like, eh. And I thought, "Oh, I don't know if this is for me." And then there was a second time when I had my school uniform on, and the hospital gave me a white jacket to put on, like an overcoat. And then they were bathing this old man, and she said to me, "Run the bath," and whatever. And I mean, this poor old dolly must have been about 97, and his shriveled manhood and everything else was shriveled. And they lifted him into the bath, and I fainted. I'd never seen a naked man, and not an old man like that.
Yeah.
But really, I fainted because I was too hot. The steam from the bath, I had my school uniform on, and then this white coat. Well, of course, the nurses, they all laughed at me, and I came away, and I just thought, you know what, this nursing work's not for me. And I ended up going and working in an office.
Oh, okay. So you didn't
Yeah.
faint in the bath though, did you? You didn't
Yeah.
like fall into the bath.
No, thankfully it was on the side. Just completely passed out. Yeah.
Oh, so funny. So, okay, so you discovered that nursing wasn't for you. So you went and worked in an office. What was the motivation for that? What brought you to that?
It was the only other thing I was good at, because I had done typing at school. And it was like, you have to go and find a job. I mean, you kind of just had to. And so I had gone to the job centre, and it was interesting because the job came up at the local college. And when I went into the local college, they said, and I got the job. I mean, I was basically just doing photocopying and stuff like that. But they said to me that they would put me through courses. So I did start to get higher education, but free, because I was a member of staff. And I did like business studies and Pitman shorthand. In those days, you used to be able to do Pitman shorthand. And then what I was learning, I was able to use in the workplace. And I just worked my way through their path, if you like. And then one day my boss said to me, you really aren't going to get very far in education unless you get into academia. You would be better suited in industry. And he had cut out this ad in the newspaper that was to work for one of the big corporations. And it said, take your life to the next level, take your career to the next level, blah, blah, blah. And it was all this lovely stuff. And I just thought, man, how nice of somebody within an organization who wanted to see a young person expand. And he said to me, I think you should go for this interview because you get paid more money and blah, blah, blah. And I did, and I got the job.
And what was the job? What was the job?
So it was a personal secretary to the area manager of BP Oil in Scotland. And so it was going from just being like a general office admin to personal assistant. And then I ended up staying with BP for 8 years, and I went from that to sales and marketing department to retail area supervisor to area manager. So
wow.
Yeah,
incredible.
Through the years, I did their internal training and just climbed through the internal career ladder. And loved it. And part of that was I had to be out on the road, so I had to learn to drive. And then they gave me a company car. And for a wee girl from Glasgow to get a flash company car was a big thing. I had my shoulder pads and my briefcase, and I just thought I was God's girl gift to the corporate world.
Fabulous. So your parents must have been very proud, especially your mum. Like, she must have been incredibly proud. Yeah,
she was actually. Yeah, she was. And it's interesting because all of my siblings they've all done really well. All sort of went out and made their own way through the University of Life and got education later in life. But and we were right, because when mum and dad died, we didn't inherit anything.
Well, they wanted to make sure you were very secure yourselves before anything happened to them, obviously. So
well, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So then you went from that. Is that where you met Ben, your husband? Did you meet him there at that?
No, at that. Well, I actually did know. I did meet him in BP because he worked there too as a drilling engineer. But actually, I didn't fancy him at that point. There were lots of big Americans around in the oil industry at that time, and I was attracted to them. But I had another boyfriend at the time who was killed in a car crash. And after he died, I discovered he was married, and I didn't know. And that put me in a real sort of downer, and I was kind of a bit lost and full of hurt and resentment and grief and anger. And I couldn't focus at work, and everybody was saying to me at the time, oh, you're better off without him because he's just a waster and he didn't deserve you. And then I felt, how can I be so stupid? Like, how can you go out with somebody for a length of time and not notice that they're living a double life? But I just didn't.
I think too, it's the age as well, because I went through that as well when I was in my 20s. Yeah, it's a shock. Yeah.
Just completely blindsided, and I suppose because I never imagined I would do that to someone. I just never thought someone would do that to me, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But
you probably felt very betrayed, did you? Did you feel quite betrayed?
Yes, terribly. And I wasn't able to go to the funeral. I wasn't able to say goodbye. And I wasn't just losing what I had at that time. I'd lost my future because he talked about moving in with me, and we were going to travel the world together, and there was all these plans. And you know, later on, one of his friends told me that he was very unhappy in his marriage and was going to divorce his wife. And in fact, he had an 18-month-old baby as well, which I knew nothing about. And, you know, so to be honest, I wouldn't have stayed with him if I'd known all of that.
You know, you wouldn't have, no. Oh, incredible. But what did it trigger you? You were going to say something when I stopped you.
It triggered me to get away, because I had to get away from the memories. People were saying to me, you know, you're better off without him, there's more fish in the sea. But I was heartbroken. I actually didn't want another fish. I wanted him. And so I saw an ad to go and work in the States and teach dancing, which sounds really left of centre. But I actually, from the age of 17 to 22, I ran a dancing school. I danced all through my teens, and my teacher was selling her school, and when I qualified at the age of 17, she sold her school to me, and I ran it till I was 22. And then with BP, I got moved to Aberdeen, and that all closed. But it was something I knew I could go back to. It was a voluntary position, so there was no expectation, and I just needed to. I rented out my house, quit my job, gave back my company car. And it's so funny, all of that then was meaningless. It meant nothing to me. I didn't give a shit about the car or the house or any of the material things that I'd been striving so hard for.
And why was that? Why didn't you care then? Like, I mean, there's a big turnaround there.
Yeah, I think probably I realized that things like truth and relationships and being centered on the inside, and like it's almost more important to have a successful internal life than external life. And all those things, when I was going through this pain, couldn't ease that pain, couldn't help me. And so losing them, it was almost like I had lost the one thing, and I'd lost myself. I'd lost sense of self. And when you lose that, the rest just pales into insignificance. And yeah, so I went to the States and I did this, and I didn't tell anybody, because that was the other thing. There was all this shame around it, and I thought, well, nobody there knows me. I can hide.
Start again too, can't you? Start all over again.
Yeah. And I quite enjoyed it, but I was weighted with grief. So they say you take yourself with you when you go and you do these things, and you take your head and you take your emotions and you and when that was finished, I didn't want to go home and face everything, so I did more voluntary work, and I went to Africa. And it was similar to Fred Hollow's. It was helping the blind get cataract operations and helping the blind to see. And that was actually quite beautiful. Again, it was people who had nothing being so grateful for like a $25 operation, giving them new life. And the company that I went with, they took kids from the UK who would otherwise have been in juvenile prison, and they made them work in third world countries. And the changes in these kids, when they had direction and they felt they were making a positive difference, and they started to realise how lucky they were to live in the UK, the change in them was phenomenal. And that, again, taught me, I'd get to know people at a deeper level, the joy in giving back, in using your skills to help someone else. I mean, I was just a project manager. I didn't do any of the hospital stuff. As we know, nursing was not my thing.
Didn't want you fainting again.
No, that would not have been good. No.
Yeah. So that would have been quite an incredible experience, though. It is, because I don't think, like, growing up in the UK, Australia, America, first world country, we don't really understand, I think, how tough it is for people like that in that situation, and we don't really realize how lucky we actually are. And giving back, if you can just go and spend your time and give back in some form, I mean, it's empowering anyway within, isn't it? Because you feel like you're making a difference to someone else's life, and then you're helping someone else and make them feel good, and then that makes you feel good because you're helping them feel
it does
better,
yeah. I mean, it sounds altruistic, but it's actually not. Like, I have this saying now that giving is selfish, because when we give like that, we feel good about ourselves. It gives us a sense of purpose. And what was interesting was, it was a tough situation for those people, but those people were so tough, Tiff. I couldn't believe how, like, these 70, 80-year-old biddies that walking sticks, half blind, jumping on and off trucks, lying on blankets on the floor. I'm not talking about, we had a makeshift hospital with tents. We'd one proper sterile operating theatre, but all the recovery and everything else was done in a field. everything was donated, and these people were just so joyful. At the end, they said they had a gift for myself and the team, and I'm thinking, what the hell can they give us? They've got nothing. And they got us all in a circle, and they started to bang sticks, and they had old drums they were tapping on. They started to clap, and they sang this song of thanks. It was like a prayer. Oh my God, there was just not a dry eye in the place. It was so moving. And to this day, I still would say it's the best gift anyone's ever given me. And it didn't cost a cent.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it would have been a very magical experience, I would have thought, but going through that. So
Really.
what happened to you after that? Well, like you did that, and did you go back to the UK?
No.
No, no.
No,
Okay.
no,
What did you do?
Actually, I kept running away because I just didn't know how to deal with it. And I was getting better, and I was definitely learning more about life, but I wasn't ready to go back home. I went to India, and I was working in a girls' school there, and I did some work with lepers. And I've got lots of leper jokes. They just kept telling me all these jokes all the time. You know, why does a leper not rob a bank? Don't know, because he has no arms. You know, they
And
had
they
all
were the
these,
ones, and they were the ones saying the jokes, right?
they were the ones telling me all these jokes, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, you know. But they just laughed. They accepted the situation. They were joyful with what they had. Again, I mean, I found it quite abhorrent, and I, you know, kind of struggled, and in some way the universe kept getting me to face back with this helping nursing thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this is not where I'm meant to be. And then finally I came to Australia, believe it or not, and I ended up working with some nuns who were doing work at a St Vincent de Paul centre, and it was a drop-in for like people that were homeless and living on the streets and had problems with alcoholism and stuff. And I got very close with this one nun, and she was beautiful. And she said, you know, Anne, she said, you're great. You're doing all this voluntary work, and you've got all this corporate experience that you bring to projects, and you get things up and running, and it's all task orientated, and it's all do. And she said, and you're smiling and you're joyful. And she said, but gosh, there's a real sadness behind your eyes. And I was like, oh my God. So I'd been kind of wearing this mask. And I was like, no, I'm fine. You know, we all do and you know what FINE stands for, don't you?
No.
Oh.
What does it stand for?
Frustrated, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Oh.
And she said that to me, and she said, oh, so you're fine. So that means you're frustrated, you're insecure. And she laughed, and I laughed, and that funny laugh became a hysterical, tearful eruption of a laugh. And my body was shaking, the tears were streaming down my face, and I thought, she's got it. She sees that I'm not fine. And she took her hand out and she held my hand, and she said exactly that. She said, it's actually okay to not be fine. And I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And it was 3 years of hurt, anger, frustration, sadness.
Just coming out, wasn't it? It was just all flowing out. Yeah.
And what she actually did, she just took the time to notice. She took the time to listen and to reach out and to say, you know, you're helping everybody else, but actually you're not helping yourself because you're still hiding.
And was that another reason, like, why you went and helped, you know, other people, was because that just made you feel so much better, like, so that you just didn't have to deal with, you know, that hurt,
I think
that you ran away from.
Yeah. I mean, I think subconsciously when I was initially doing it, it was like I couldn't cope with the pressure of a job and having to get results because I was so emotionally drained, and I didn't need the money, thank God. And so I was able to do the voluntary work, but I was able to hide behind this facade. but when she then helped me deal with the grief and forgiveness, and I mean, she was an amazing woman. And but when I then did go home, I did actually, she helped me heal, and I did go home after that. But I did not want to go back into corporate. I still didn't want to be a nurse.
Yeah.
But I knew I wanted to help people in a way that help them almost more mentally rather than physically.
Because you saw the power too, didn't you, in what was uncovered for you was all the mental, the mental, wasn't it? The emotion, yeah.
Yes. And all the physical things that I was feeling, just that heaviness and lethargy, and you know, a lot of it, I had back pain and I had neck pain, I would get headaches, and I started to realize that a lot of that was because I was carrying all this emotional pain. And when that lifted, the change in my physical well-being was just incredible. That mind-body connection is so powerful, and I had never even really known anything about that.
Okay, so you finally went back and were able to deal with things. What happened for you then? Yeah, what did you do?
And the only reason I went back actually was that my best friend was getting married, and I was to be her bridesmaid, and I said to her, look, I just can't face coming home. And she said, well, if you don't come back, I'm not getting married.
Oh, wow.
Said,
okay.
I can't have
Pressure's
my wedding
on.
without you there. And I was like, oh, bugger. So, okay, I better go. And at that wedding, I met Ben, who has been my husband for 25 years.
Congratulations.
And what was interesting was that he was actually not brought up in the UK, and he'd been brought up in Africa. When we started to talk about the sunrise in Africa and the African people and whatever, we just had this real connection. He had sort of a heart for poverty, and and we connected. Actually, that day he met me, he'd been offered a job in Spain. So he said that was a day that changed his whole life. And so he asked me if he wanted to take the job, but would I go with him?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then your daughters, excuse me, were your daughters born in Spain?
The eldest was, yeah. She was. That was a hilarious experience when you don't know much of the vocabulary around childbirth and pregnancy, and then you don't know it in much of it in English, never mind in Spanish. That was quite an experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Lots of screaming and probably pointing and stuff, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. And then did you come to Australia after that?
Not directly after. So we were in Spain for 3 years, and then Ben got a job in London, and I was missing family. So we went back to the UK, and we had our second baby there. And then we were there for 7 or 8 years, and I actually got a job in a high school. So I retrained. All that mindset stuff really intrigued me, and I went in and did NLP. I did positive psychology. I actually at one point thought that I wanted to work in a women's prison, so I did a postgraduate in chaplaincy. And then I got a job in the local high school, working with kids who weren't doing well. They had potential, but they had no guidance, and they didn't have belief in themselves. And again, it was the whole. I loved that. School hours, school holidays fitted in with the family life, and we were there for 7 years, and then moved to Australia again because Ben was offered a job. And by the time we moved to Australia, both of my parents had passed away, and that made the move easier. I would have struggled to move this far if they were still alive and elderly. And
how old were your daughters when you came out to Australia then? Because they're only little, weren't they?
Yeah, 7 and 8. So they were at primary school. And that was great because getting them into school, the school community, I did voluntary work. I loved the whole Australian life of, you know, you have a party and everybody brings a plate, or there's so much done outdoors, and we live on the northern beaches, so we were able to enjoy the beach, and it was just this amazing lifestyle. And you know, I used to walk around the house and just think, oh, Mum, if you could see where I live now. You know, I mean, she had such a tiny place with 6 kids, and now I'm living in paradise.
You do have a lovely home, yes, for sure. Yeah, but I think we, you know, as you know, I live on the northern beaches as well, and I mean, we do live in paradise. I mean, we're very, very fortunate. Yeah. Very grateful. Yeah, for that. And so the girls went to school. You're a stay-home mum for a period of time.
Yeah, because Ben travelled overseas a lot, and so my job was, you know, find a house, buy a trampoline and a dog, and all the things that you do. You know, go to the cake sales and the fundraisers, and I actually enjoyed doing that for a wee while. And I, you know, I did feel lucky that I didn't have to work. And it was fine until the kids were sort of halfway through high school. I hit 50, menopause. Felt as if I kind of lost my identity a wee bit. I didn't know where I was heading. I still felt I had a lot to contribute. They didn't need me so much anymore. And I really lost my confidence. Not working in corporate, the technology had moved on. I wasn't really improving my skills. And I felt quite a bit lost and a bit alone. And I mean, I had plenty of people around me, but I just felt alone in my own head that I didn't, what was I going to do for the next 30 years?
Yeah, and you have like with the experience that you've already, you know, up until that point that you've already had, there was a lot of, and I know that you gave a lot of, obviously as a mother, you give a lot to your daughters, and you know, you devote your life to them, but it was getting to that point, wasn't it? It's like, okay, well, they're, you know, getting older and they're going off and doing their own thing, and Ben's traveling and doing his, you know, for working for his job and so on. He had a high pressure job, didn't he? Quite a busy job. And then there's you, and it's like you say, you turn 50. Okay, what do I do? So talk about that. Like, what was going on? Let's dive deeper into that, Anne. What was going on there? You know, very lost.
Funny, isn't it? I don't know whether it's that number is a psychological thing, or like 40 didn't really bother me. I remember when I was 40 thinking, well, you know, I'm in a nice place, I'm married, got my kids, and we were still in the UK at that point. I was working at the school, and I just felt, oh, I've still got half of my life ahead of me. And 50 was different. And maybe it's a societal thing where as a 50-year-old woman you feel a bit more invisible, or maybe it's the menopause. Like I started to feel, maybe because we produce less estrogen and more testosterone, I was becoming a bit more, not aggressive, but aggressive. I was answering back. I was more irritable. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I used to say to my kids, I feel like Cinderella. I'm the only one that does all the cooking and the cleaning and tidying and sorting, and you all just live your life, but my life is tidying up after everybody else. And I said, well, Cinderella wants to go to the ball. She's had enough. She wants to go and dance with her prince, you know. And then and Ben would get all stressed and go, well, what do you mean go and dance with your prince, you know? And I was like, I don't know what it means, but I mean, something has to change. There was just just an emptiness in my life, and in I think I had lost that inner peace that I found when I traveled.
It sounds like you went back to that you're feeling fine sort of scenario.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Very frustrated within. Yeah.
You're very right. And there's a big lesson in that. I think that it's not because once you have a breakthrough, the rest of your life is great. it's almost like we need little mini daily breakthroughs, or daily reminders that fine isn't really where you want to be. You want to have that inner peace feeling again. What did you do back then that made you feel like that you can continue to feel like that? But of course, we forget and we lose sight of it unless it becomes a daily practice. And I didn't really have anybody to talk to, because I thought I was the only woman on the planet that was feeling like this. And I thought it was very selfish of me to tell anyone, because I had a really good husband, beautiful kids, great home. Some would say, well, you're bloody lucky you don't have to work, you don't have financial issues. And I had on the surface a very blessed.
Did you feel guilty though, feeling that way?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I thought it's I shouldn't feel like this, because we're told these are the things we're to strive for, and we've, I mean, both Ben and I started with very little. We've created what we've got. We're meant to be really happy now. So why am I not? And it was like, and I mean, you remember, because we knew each other when I was going through that phase, and you were one of the people that I felt I could confide in and talk to, and I would just sit and cry and feel guilty and lost. And
you just needed someone to talk to, so you could just let it all out and feel like you're in a safe space.
Yes.
And it was okay to feel that way.
Yes, it's almost giving yourself permission to be lost, and that to acknowledge that you're a bit lonely in your own head, and that things haven't quite panned out. Because a lot of it comes down to expectation too. Where did I think I would be by the time I was 50? Did I think I would be like this super executive, or super business owner, or I was never going to be a super nurse, but there were other things I thought I'd be super at, but
I can understand
it was that. Maybe it's just disappointment in myself, or disappointment in the judgment of myself, and then I was probably, my inner self-talk was quite negative, and in addition to all the hormonal stuff that's going on when you're 50, and often teenage kids aren't very lovable. So that's hard too. You love them, but you don't necessarily like them, and they don't really like you either. So that's hard.
Yeah, a lot going on there. Yeah, I mean, I understand, because I'm now 52, and I went through, when I turned 50, I was absolutely devastated about being 50. I always think I'm a Peter Pan, or and young at life and all of that, and it hit me really hard being 50, and the same thing, like expectation. I didn't achieve the goals that I thought that I would have achieved by the time I was 50, so all I saw was failure and disappointment, and thought I wasn't good enough, and I just didn't think there was any point of really living. Not that I felt suicidal, but I understood what it was like to feel like, well, what's the point of it all? Like, I've made it to 50 and I've got nothing to show for it, and that's how I saw myself. And that was because I didn't achieve my childhood dream, and so I spent pretty much 30 years beating myself up about that. So so I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. So what happened then? Because there was a lot of changes that started to go on after that.
Yeah, I was I started to kind of reach out for help a wee bit, and that doesn't come naturally for me. I like to be the one, I can do it and I can sort it, and I can and a friend said to me, because I wish I could find a group of women where they all felt the same, we could do something positive together, and she said to me, well, why don't you start a group? And then immediately the doubts and fear, oh no, I couldn't do that, and who would come, and what would I talk about, and where would I hold it, and everybody's busy, and I had all these. And then someone else introduced me to meetup.com, and said, you know what, you can have this and you can meet up and talk about anything. You can meet up and walk dogs or have coffees. Or so I thought, I'll just put it out there. And if nothing happens, then I've not lost anything. And so I put up this thing, self-empowerment for women, based on what I had really studied in the last 15 years. And I had studied it all and learned it all, but I had kind of forgotten it all. And I had 60 women sign up in the first week. And I thought,
wow.
oh my God, I'm not alone. There are lots of women that feel like this. This is amazing. And I just had a local community hall, got people there for free. At each meeting, we probably had 12, 15 people show up. Although 60 signed up, not everybody came in person to the meetings. And kind of unwittingly, I became the leader of the group. And women would share their issues and I would talk as well. And then I would say, oh, have you tried this technique? Have you done this questionnaire? Have you? And then people would say to me, I don't want to share everything in a group. Could you help me one-on-one? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then somebody said to me, well, you need to start a business. And then again, I was like, oh no, I couldn't run a business. I don't know anything about tax. I don't know anything about hiring people. I don't want responsibility for employees, and all this. And she said to me, but you could just have them come to the house and coach and whatever there, but you should charge for your time. And it's like, oh, okay. And so that's what I did, and didn't charge much of a fee initially. And they'd just come and sit on the sofa and we'd work through some issues. And my business grew organically from there. And then I started to learn about online marketing, and I think that's probably
you had a great time. We spent a lot of time together then.
where you and I met, and and how to run a business, and how to build your confidence around that, and that was a painful journey. That's been a really sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, it was only it was just learning new skills, wasn't it? I mean, that was the thing, and you were just at that time being challenged around, learning new skills because technology was moving very quickly, and you were just like, I don't know if I can do this, and I was like, yes, you can.
And I didn't enjoy it. Yeah.
No, you dreaded having to do it all, and yeah. But at that time too, like when you were building that, the online side of things in your business, you were still doing the meetup groups and you're still doing the one-on-ones, weren't you?
Yes.
In that time. Yeah. So that still gave you that interaction with people. You didn't feel alone either, though, because you had support around you.
Yes. And actually, and that was fantastic. And it was really interesting because initially Ben and the girls weren't that keen on me doing all of this because it took my time and attention away from them. And so we had to really work as a family to come up with manageable schedules and tools so that we didn't all keep falling out and arguing about everything. And so we did a schedule for cooking and cleaning and shopping and whatever. And initially they were all like, but now they'll say to me, look, it's great. My girls in particular say, Mum, you helped us to grow up. And now they're sharing with other people, and they say we're good housemates now. We know not to just leave our dishes in the sink for a week and upset someone else. We're aware of taking a night to cook and maybe sharing the cooking and sitting and enjoying having dinner together. And you've all got things to talk about, because we'd sit at the dinner table and they'd all talk about school and work, and I'd sit there and think, well, I went and walked the dog today. That was my life. And
cleaned up after everybody.
Whereas I'd be able to say, I learned this. And actually the technology stuff, they started to help. They started to help me because they were young and at school. They started to help me with some of the online technology stuff. They'd say, oh, Mum, that's easy. You just upload this and you press that and you edit that. And, and they'd have it done. So that was good. And it was also good for them to see that adults don't have all the answers, and we don't find life easy every day. That you still struggle later in life.
Mm, mm,
We had a little thing that when they came home, we would do this sign, and if we'd had a good day, it would be a thumbs up, and if we hadn't had a good day, it would be a thumbs down. And any day I did a thumbs down, they were horrified. What, mum? How come? And then, maybe a client had cancelled, or I'd spent money on a Facebook ad that didn't work, or I just was not feeling it that day. I'd lost belief in myself, and it was amazing because they would then start coaching me things I'd been teaching them over the years, and they'd be saying, "But you have to take it a day at a time, Mum, and tomorrow will be better, and don't give up." And they started to be really encouraging, which was just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, that would have been, and because I know that you were really struggling at that time, like you were questioning everything, weren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely everything.
Oh,
And
I
you were just
wanted to.
questioning whether you could do it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm,
Yeah. I could very easily have pulled the plug on everything.
mm.
Being a mum, being a wife, being a business owner. uh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So what are you doing now? Like, so that was pre-COVID. We do everything pre-COVID and post-COVID
Yeah,
these days, don't we? That's how we
yeah,
talk.
we do.
But so that
Yeah.
was a few years before COVID when you were building your online business and everything that you went through with that. Like, how's it going? What are you up to these days? What's
Well,
happening with it?
COVID was really interesting for me because for where it was a terrible time for a lot of people, my business actually went through the roof. There were so many women at home struggling with homeschooling, husbands working from home as well. They're trying to run a business from home, kids running around, doing Zoom calls, not being able to get out in the fresh air, kids going crazy. And they also were getting government subsidies. And so many of them were saying, actually, I'm going to use this to invest in myself in a way that they hadn't in the past. And so I had like 8 hours back to back calls, 5 days a week. It was incredible. And I just felt, this is it. I've made it. My business is going, great guns, and I'm helping so many women. And I did it for 2 years. And at the end of the 2 years, I was so completely burnt out.
Mm,
I almost wanted to give it up again. And I said to
mm,
Ben, I actually can't keep going at this pace. And the lesson there was, be careful what you wish for. Because I then felt trapped. And I almost had that isolated feeling again. I was just me and my Zoom day in,
yeah.
day out. I wasn't getting exercise. There was a lot of people struggling. And that if you're an empath, it's really hard because you're walking alongside these women going, oh my God, I just wish I had a magic wand. I could change all of this for you. I can help you and I can guide you, but it's going to take time. And by the end of the week, I would be carrying some of these burdens in my own heart, and I just felt
Mm,
emotionally and physically drained.
mm, mm.
So at the end of COVID, I had to look at really what was my motivation. And often our motivation is money, and because that's how we see success. We live in a capitalist society,
That's
whether we,
exactly, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
it's all about money. Like, you're successful if you've got a lot of money, you live in a beautiful home, you've got a lovely car, and all the
yeah,
trimmings around that, isn't it? That's how you're
yeah.
judged.
But
Yeah.
yet, most of the people that I know that have got all that, it's all on debt. It's
Yeah,
all,
that's
you know,
right.
it's all on their
That's
credit
right.
card. And you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what the hell? Why would you put
yeah,
yourself in that position? And
yeah.
so, and for us, because, Ben works as well, um, and the girls were getting older, and we weren't paying school fees anymore. And so our costs were, Ben's car's 15 years older and mine is 10. We haven't bought new cars for a while. And so we started to think, we could actually just cut our cloth and live to our means. And when is enough enough? When do you say, actually, I'm really satisfied with what I've got? And at that point, financially we were, but in getting there, my physical health was way out of kilter. So then I had to try and find a balance, and go through my timetable and say, right, well, how many clients can I take? How much time can I put into getting some fitness, to eating well, to meeting up with friends? And of course, by then, after COVID, things started to open up again. And I started to kayak. We live near the water, which we're very blessed to do. And I was able to go 2 or 3 times a week to kayak. And I just decided that on the mornings that I do that, I won't have any clients, I won't work. So I basically went, not quite part-time, but, definitely cut down on the hours that I work. And the difference has just been phenomenal. This past 18 months I've done that. And I just feel I've got a nice flow now. But
Did
it's
you
also,
did you can I interrupt for a moment? But
yeah,
did you do that? Because you were so burnt out, right? So all you were doing again was you were just giving to everyone, right?
yeah,
As you do,
yeah,
because you're a giver, right?
yeah,
And you just gave and gave and gave, and there was just absolutely nothing left for you.
yeah,
And then you made that decision that, okay, I actually have to give back to me now.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and it sounds like there's been a theme in your life, right?
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
you've been doing. You burn yourself out, and then you realize that you have to give to you, and then you started with the paddling, and it's like taking time out. So
yeah,
it sounds to me like you're starting to create a lifestyle. It's
yes,
not about work. It's
yes.
about creating a lifestyle, isn't it?
That's totally it. Yeah, you're dead right. And because with the paddling, what I say is that from that I get fitness, fun, and friendships. I've made all these new friends, and it's something that I go to that I don't have to organize. I just turn up and I'm part of the group, and I don't think I've got to focus on not falling in the water, so I'm not thinking about anything else. So it gives my whole mental space a rest. I'm out in nature. And I'm actually a better coach because when I feel reinvigorated, and I'm able then to recognize those traits in other women and say, I know where you're at, girlfriend, because I've been there and I did it to myself and it doesn't serve anyone, least of all you. And even my family will say now, I mean, Ben will say to me, this is the happiest and most content that he's really ever known me, I think, in 25 years, which is ridiculous because it was all striving. And now it's kind of like I've reached a stage where I feel really happy with what I have. I meditate at least every day for 20 minutes and center myself again when I can feel myself getting dragged. Because external things do knock us about. It's either other people's opinions or their timetable or their moods or, things that are going on around me, and learning to not react to those, but choosing how you're going to act in your daily life and in each situation, from a place of centeredness and so much acceptance. And in our world, if we talk about contentment and acceptance, it's kind of like seen as a giving in, or you're not striving anymore, you're not ambitious anymore, you're not, and there's almost a wee bit of a judgment that comes with that. But it's the opposite. It's so freeing that you feel reinvigorated and you do want to go for things, but it's with a different level of passion. Like I used to follow all the templates of, every other guru, what they said and how they said we do it. And then it wouldn't work and I'd feel like a failure. And now it's like I'm creating my own template.
Love it. Yeah. I understand. Because I've been going through exactly the same thing. It must be this 50-something thing that we go through,
Yeah.
because I'm, like all about being at peace within every day. And anyone that I talk to, if they ask me what my goal is for the day, it's just to feel happy Happy within. All I want to do is feel happy within. If I'm happy within, I have a great day, no matter what's thrown at me. And it's that
Yes.
feeling of being centered. So um, it's an amazing place to be. It doesn't mean that you don't want to still accomplish things or have things
No.
happen in your life or anything. It's just that your attitude and your approach to it is just so different. You don't have to strive and beat yourself up and, work, 80, 90 hours a week and think that, you just got to do the hard yards. You can actually do it a different way, and you can do it
Yes.
in a way that you're meant to do it, like in an enjoyable way, and have fun and get fit and spend time with your family or people that you love, or friends that you love, and have a lifestyle. And that's what it should be about, shouldn't it? Isn't that what it's about?
Yes, yes. And actually, I think one of the challenges for me now is being that role model for my girls, because they saw me being a stay-at-home mum, becoming a martyr, pushing to prove myself. I don't know who I was trying to prove myself to, but ending up in burnout, and then saying to them, well, you can be anything and do anything, and then they're looking at me going, well, you're not a great example of that. And being able to say, well, actually, I have now found a way, and and it's not an overnight thing. Any of these new mindset techniques that we use, which help us shift our state from sad to happy, or from distracted to focused, or from left to right, they take it's a daily practice where we're rewiring the brain, and we're unlearning all the things, the negative coping mechanisms that we had in the past. And what I'm trying to do with my girls is prevent them from having so many negative mechanisms and negative self-talk, and replacing them as young as possible. I think it's really important for us to help the next generation to say, this is human nature, and don't be caught up in that same hype.
Exactly.
Find yourself sooner.
Exactly. Because it's interesting. I watch. I'm not a big fan of watching the news and all of that kind of thing, but I do take note every so often. I don't get too involved in it, and I always say to Ian that I said, no wonder people get so upset and worked up, because I said that's all you hear, though, is you hear a lot of negativity, like we're going to go into a recession, or or you hear people living in tents, and and this is what's going to happen. There's so many jobs that you're not going to be able to work anymore because AI is going to replace you, and I'm thinking, wow, like you could just go into a depression every day if you just sat and listened to all of that's coming at you on the radio, or podcasts even, or watching the TV, or looking at social media, whatever. And I'm like, you've got to start your day every day in a way that's going to benefit you, feeding your mind with positivity, whatever that thing that you're going to do. I have a series of questions. I listen to specific things. I go and train at the gym. I meditate. I do all that sort of stuff, as you know, to help me get centered, as you say, your words, get centered, and then so that I'm setting myself up for a good day. And that's what you're doing, and that's what you're teaching people to do. Obviously your daughters, but that's what you do with people, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's because we've all got our blind spots. The thing is that we don't see how we're reacting to things, or how we view the world, and no two people see the world the same. And so when you work with someone else, and I've had coaches help me do this, they're like, but Anne, what if that's not true? It might be true for you, but is it universally true? Is it really that bad? Is it really that situation? And then you go, oh God, maybe I am making a mountain out of a molehill, or maybe I am looking at this the wrong way. And if you can reframe and see things in a different way, and put yourself back in a kind of control of things. And but my book, Take Back Control of Your Life, is actually all about letting go. Because that's it's a paradox, really.
It is, isn't it? It is. It is. It's you taking the control and letting it go and letting it flow. But it's a different way that you take control, though, isn't it? In a sense, in that letting go.
Yes, and it's positive techniques, it's positive routines, it's positive ways of retraining the brain, so that, and actually when you do it often enough, like every day over time, it then just becomes second nature. It doesn't become an effort. It doesn't feel like a habit or a new habit or a good habit, or it's just part of who you are. And I think not listening to all the media and stuff is a good idea, because what I see is people get frustrated and they get angry, and then they feel they can't make a change. And so people, that hot anger and frustration, we can burn ourselves out very quickly with that. And what I learned, it was actually one of the lessons that I learned from this nun, was that live your own life and be kind to yourself, be kind to those in your family, be kind to those in your community, and the rest will take care of itself. And if you're walking alongside someone, like she was working with refugees, some of those refugees weren't accepted into Australia for 10 years, but she was with them every day. The people that were out chanting and shouting and whatever, they would do 2 or 3 weekends and then get frustrated, oh, the government sucks, and give up and go and shout about something else. And so they didn't have a long-term impact. And I think that's the other thing, is that we think things should happen really quickly, what we think we should be able to achieve in 3 months. And you remember this when we were working on our businesses, and then it doesn't work in 3 months and you're like, what the heck? But this is my 7th year now, and 7 years down the track, I think, oh, okay, I kind of get it now. But the first 2 years I didn't make any profit.
No, and you also the way in which you were marketed to, and through particular people that we worked with in helping us build our business, was how you could make $100,000 in 6 weeks, that kind of thing, and then wasn't it? And so 3 months down the track, you made a Zach, and then you're like, oh, okay, well I just can't do this, and that's where that
my failure,
lack of confidence.
But what I found now is that, and it changes every year, and every year I'm kind of shedding another skin, and a new opportunity is opening or changing. Or so through COVID, I had all that online stuff in the burnout. Then I started the paddling and just doing, and I stopped the meetup group in person, because through COVID it was stopped anyway, and then I just didn't start that back up again, because in a way that was a voluntary thing, because there was no payment for it. And then I decided that I wanted to share this story that we've talked about today in my journey in a memoir. And so half of my time last year was spent writing that and looking at how I would put it together, plus getting out and doing more fitness.
Have you finished it?
And I had.
Have you finished it yet?
I have finished.
Have you finished your memoir?
Writing it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
So we've got to stay tuned for that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I haven't published it yet, and that's another journey. I mean, I've gone to 3 publishers and they've all turned me down. So I may end up self-publishing it. But that's another learning curve and another few setbacks and another get back on that horse experiences. But I'm kind of open to it now, and I don't see it as failure anymore. I just see it as feedback, that what I've done so far isn't quite resonating, and so there's something else I need to do to make it better. I'm not quite sure what that is yet, and I'm still on that journey, and hopefully will show itself when the time is right.
It probably will show itself when the time is right. Yeah. So what are you still running your business now, or are you
Yes.
what are you doing now? Like what are you working on this year? Because if people want to come and do a course with you or whatever, what do you tell us about what you're up to?
Oh, thanks, Tiff, for that opportunity. Yeah, look, I'm still running my business and I'm still doing the one-on-one coaching. And my thing for this year was collaborations. And it was so funny because you just phoned me out the blue. We haven't spoken for ages, and you were like, "Do you want to be on my podcast?" And I was like, how the universe works. There's another collaboration. And I actually just did a storytelling workshop, like helping people how to create your story and have the confidence to share it. And I'm doing that in collaboration with a woman that runs the story room in Manly. And next week I'm doing a women's wellness workshop for 4 weeks with a local lady that does fitness. And we're all about empowering women. And I'm really enjoying now not having to do everything on my own anymore. And there's lots of skills I can bring, but they're also contributing, and we're bouncing off each other's energies. And so this year, travel and collaboration are my outlook. But the business is still running on a part-time basis. So I'm pretty selective about who I work with now and how many hours I work. But it also means that anyone that gets me as their coach gets a really good deal because I'm in a really good place.
Oh yeah, well I know how awesome you are, so yeah, they'd be very
Thanks.
privileged to have you. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
No,
Um,
thank you.
so how can people find you? Like, what's the best way to? Have you got a YouTube channel? You're putting your message
Yeah,
out there. What's happening?
probably my website's probably the best place. It's just McKeown.com. And I offer a free 30-minute strategy session for anyone that's looking for, they're feeling a bit stuck and they don't know how to move forward. I'll have a 30-minute phone call with you or Zoom call like this, and we'll work through because I still do believe in giving back. And I have my book that I mentioned earlier is free on my website as an ebook, so you can download it. I sell hard copies, but it's free on the website, and there are questionnaires in there and exercises that people can work through to kind of get started and get to know me. And yeah, reach out, send me a text. My number is on my website. And yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that too. But one of the things I've learned over the time is I know you need to be on social media and have a presence and everything there, but it's not really where my main connection comes with people. I really like to get to know people, and I think with social media that's a wee bit more difficult. I love this kind of thing because people can see us, they can hear us, they get a vibe of us. And any kind of live events I do is probably where I connect.
Oh yes, I've seen you in action and live events. You're absolutely
Yeah.
awesome. You inspire and motivate everybody. Yeah, and
Oh,
you
thank you.
love it. I see
Yeah,
your eyes light up like
I do.
plates when you're up there. So
Yeah,
it's
I do.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And is there anything that you'd like to share, like with somebody that's listening now and that might be have some self doubt or struggling in their life and don't have the confidence to, just don't think that they're good enough in doing anything. What would be the message that you could give them to give them hope in, okay, that they're not alone, that they can actually, accomplish or move forward into what they want to do?
I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is that we stay in our own head and we try and struggle through on our own. Women in particular, I would say nothing changes if you change nothing, and reach out and ask for help. And whether that's free help or paid help or getting a community around you, or, you know, my big thing was I struggled on my own and I didn't tell anybody and I hid behind it for far too long. And I was in this martyr mode. And the minute I started to tell friends and I started that meetup group, and I was really, and I tell you, it was hard because I was this corporate woman who was used to solving problems and doing things, and I didn't want to show that vulnerability or that I was struggling, or so it's not an easy thing. But as soon as I did, what I realized was, one, people wanted to help, and I gave them permission to admit that they were struggling too. And when you've got a community around you, or even just one or two friends, the problem with friends is that they won't necessarily be dead honest with you. Like, often friends will say, oh, you'll be right, or no, your behaviour's not that bad, or whatever. Whereas the coach will challenge you and say, you know what you're doing right now doesn't work. We need to find another way for you, and show you why what you're doing right now isn't working, and find another way. So that is helpful. But stepping out and changing something and asking, look at the greatest pain point. So for you, is it your health and wellness? You're not looking after yourself physically. Is it your mental self-talk? Is it your relationships? Is it your business? And then look at that and say, why is that not going so well? What patterns are there? And then even ask people for honest feedback. I mean, it's really hard to do in your own. My key would be reach out and ask for support.
That's well said, and I appreciate that. Thank you. So, Anne, I'd love to just say thank you so much for your kindness and your input and your sharing today. It's been, I know for me, like, I've actually learnt more about you than I thought I knew. I thought I'd known quite a lot, but there were some great stories that were unfolding there. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being so open as well and sharing everything that you shared with us today, because it was so impactful. So we really appreciate it. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you.
Oh, well, can I say ditto? Because I love having the opportunity, and you've given me this forum to share, and I hope it does resonate with some people. And I know that you and I both want to make the world a better place, and even if that's just in our own wee village. And I watch what you do, and you've never given up either. You're still, still marching on. And I know your story, and I really love being part of this platform, and I look forward to sharing this, because I want more people to see what you're doing as well.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we'll have to collaborate ourselves a lot more in the future, so that we're building some great things together. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, me too.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, Anne. I really appreciate it. And dream big, believe in you, go after your dreams. Hey.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. See ya.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.